Great. So my name is Grace Linder. I am a first year at the UNE College of Osteopathic Medicine. It's a pleasure to be here. This opportunity has been really interesting, really eye-opening. I'm very curious to see what my colleagues have been working on because I know that I gained a lot of insight from this experience. My colleague Hannah, I believe that she's still working with patients right now. Just because of her schedule, sometimes things run over. So I'm going to be presenting on the behalf of both of us. But Hannah Post is a student at the College of Dental Medicine. And we brainstormed this idea while attending a leadership conference hosted by the School of Pharmacy, realizing that there was a lot about these two fields that overlap, and knowing that we could do a lot more to educate our patients about that.
Thinking about your heart health, diabetes, or even dementia-related illnesses. But believe it or not, your dental health and medical health are intricately linked. Hello, my name is Grace Linder. I'm a student at the College of Osteopathic Medicine, and I worked alongside Hannah Post, a student at the College of Dental School, to develop an educational pamphlet that provides students with measures they can take to maintain their oral health and therefore their overall health. We would like to thank our advisor, Professor Eileen Dunphy, for her contribution to our interprofessional collaboration and her mentorship. Before we take a look at the educational pamphlet, we would like to cast a light on the vast overlap between dental health and some of the most prevalent diseases plaguing our country. About 1 in 10 Americans are diagnosed with diabetes. Studies have shown that individuals with poorly controlled glycemic index are at a higher risk for periodontitis. Additionally, we can see various links between the bacteria of the oral cavity and the heart, the respiratory system, and even the brain. This link suggests that good oral health can have improved health outcomes for coronary artery disease, untreated or antibiotic-resistant respiratory infections, and dementia-related illnesses. It's crucial for dentists and physicians to not only be educated on the intersection of oral and medical health, but also educate their patients about it and provide them with strategies to maintain good oral health. The pamphlet that we created is meant to provide them with strategies to maintain good oral health. It offers things such as recommendations for regular dental checkups and cleanings, regular medical visits, and compliance with medications. It recommends that people brush their teeth twice a day and floss once a day, avoid tobacco products, as well as using fluoride in oral products such as toothpaste and mouthwash. It's also important to eat a balanced diet and have it be low in sugary food as well as drinks. We believe that providing this type of education is going to be key to helping reduce these prevalent diseases and improve overall patient outcomes.
Okay, I have just dropped a couple links in the chat. The first one to a clear image of the poster, and the second to an educational pamphlet. Me and Hannah, although we can do a deep dive into the papers published about the overlap between dental and medical health, we wanted to put something together that made sense to the community, made sense to clinics, both medical and dental, that they could provide to patients with very like smart goals, so to speak, so very actionable items. Something that I want to acknowledge here is that not everybody has access or can afford or has the resources to take care of their dental health, let alone their medical health. We know that some jobs don't cover dental health, some health insurances don't cover dental health, and so we have a lot of work to do there in terms of providing that opportunity to people to maintain those. So what our poster is doing is really speaking to the connection between what's happening in the oral cavity and the rest of the body. This is something that continues to surprise me, but also give me hope, because we have so many systemic diseases in this country, as mentioned in that presentation. And we're constantly looking for ways to prevent them and to treat them. And it seems that the oral cavity actually offers a lot of potential for prevention of these systemic diseases. And I think that that's, a huge goal of osteopathic medicine, as well as all other healthcare professions, right, is to prevent these things from happening. And so making sure that I'm speaking to my dental counterparts and understanding that, I have a responsibility to mentor my patients and say, hi, like, when was the last time that you went to the dentist? Is your dentist doing a full oral exam to catch things like oral cancers? I was reminded that your dentist should always be doing a full oral exam of all areas, because that's not something that maybe me as a doctor am routinely doing. And so that's really about optimizing this healthcare that we should all be receiving, and really how we can support each other in that. Some other things, was everyone able to access the poster? Just if I could get a read on that. No, not working. No, okay. Well, I can speak to some of the things on it. In terms of what was covered, briefly mentioned in the introduction video, is our understanding of Alzheimer's. And some of you may know that that is related to the beta amyloid protein, and infections in the oral cavity have been associated with increased production of this beta amyloid protein. So just there is an association, and something to be aware of. It kind of reminds me, taking a look at this project just reminds me that just like we talk about the gut microbiome, we need to remember that the oral cavity is almost included in that, right? And so it's really, the oral cavity is just an extension of this growing conversation that we have about the gut microbiome. So we talk about nutrition in our poster, and in the ways that that obviously can lead to caries or cavities, which Hannah would be much more well-versed in describing, but also diabetes, cardiovascular disease. We know that cancer is associated as well, respiratory diseases. We know that the respiratory system is connected to the oral cavity, and even dentists being able to detect from the health of gums whether or not a patient needs to be evaluated for diabetes. So there's all of these.
I'm going to interrupt you and thank you for this great
presentation.
Oh, yes. I think at UNE we have a unique opportunity to think across disciplinary lines in our body systems. I'm a psychologist, so I think about the inputs of mental health to physical health, and this artificial distinction between oral health and physical health has been problematic on many levels. So I think this is a great way of getting the word out, and I really appreciate your enthusiasm. We are ready to move on, though, to keep time with our next poster.
Thank you for reminding me of the time. Thank you, everybody, for being in this session and hearing about this poster. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you so much. That was excellent information.
I think that's us. Is Hannah in the room right now?
I am.
Okay. Way.
So for the next poster, you'll hear me talking a lot on there, but I'm joined today to further the discussion with some of my colleagues if they'd like to introduce themselves.
My name is Maura Judd. I'm a last semester ABSN student at the Portland campus.
Hi, I'm Julie Geldner. I am a soon-to-graduate occupational therapy student, second year.
I'm Anna Cook. I'm a third-year PT student about to graduate.
And I'm also a third-year PT student graduating this May.
So should we play it?
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Jones. I'm a third-year physical therapy student at UNE. I'm here to present for my team on the UNE WHA Wellness Fair's Insight into Aging Culture from an interprofessional student team perspective. We'll leave a lot of the discussion of the specific events that took place during the summer 2021, fall, winter 2021, and upcoming spring 2022 events for our question and answer and discussion time. And I would like to just highlight some of the different data from our poster. So as an overview, Westbrook Housing Authority, or WHA, provides affordable quality housing to over 650 residents ages 55 and over in 12 plus buildings throughout Westbrook, Maine. Their mission statement is to provide opportunities for affordable quality housing to assist individuals and families and to encourage independence within a supportive community. And the UNE Wellness Center was invited to join WHA in early 2020 and officially opened to residents' use in fall 2021 after the inaugural Wellness Festival. So what is a mini wellness fair? This was an extension of the inaugural WHA Wellness Festival, or fair, as you will, that took place in July of 2021. Originally as
a way to efficiently engage many residents and to invite them to get to know UNE students and the Wellness Center. So this first started as a way to collect data for needs assessment, to understand the services that residents needed the most and activities that they were interested in to improve community spirit, quality of life, physical health, emotional health, brain health, all these areas that you can see data collected on the right side of the poster. So this was a way for students to engage with residents and to perform these needs assessment interviews and understand the types of activities that they would like. So then these activities that they indicated that they enjoy doing, we use that data to plan for our future mini wellness fairs, which are smaller versions of the original wellness festival. So this is also an opportunity to bring resources and activities directly to the residents and their buildings, so improving accessibility. So this was definitely an interprofessional work trying to host these events. Definitely not just one person, and definitely not one profession would be able to provide the holistic events that we did without the multiple perspectives from everyone involved. The CECE mini grant also provided an opportunity for students to collaborate and work together to plan and implement the events. There was also an opportunity at the original Wellness Festival where students from Tufts University School of Medicine main track joined UNE students to help with the needs assessment and host the event. And so that's one of the future implications that we would like to continue, is to make this even more interprofessional, invite students from the Tufts University School of Medicine and other surrounding area schools to join us in efforts to make this even more of an interprofessional, intercollegiate event. And then to also think about expanding the fairs to other marginalized groups in our community, offer interpreter services for those that have English as their second language, and to support cost for events such as this with fundraising efforts. And then something that is already in the works is using the remaining funding from the John T. Gorman Foundation for offering residents in-home assessments from occupational therapy students at UNE beginning this summer. So this was a very brief overview of the work that we did with Westbrook Housing and these many wellness fairs and the Wellness Festival. We would like to encourage lots of questions and lots of rich discussion during our question and answer period, where we'll discuss more about the intricacies of each event and addressing any further questions on the information that I left out here on the poster. Please feel free to reach out with any questions and to peruse the poster with all of its great information that we provided here. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to discussing this further. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah and team. I'm curious, in the few minutes we have to talk about this, if you have a personal story of a resident that one of you interacted with that touched you, or could personalize this, because there are so many different aspects of this project.
Tom, I think you just muted yourself. Or, oh, sorry, maybe I can't hear.
No, that's okay. I think you did for a second. But I have a story. I can kick it off a little bit. So I was at the inaugural summer festival at the Nature as Nurture booth and the social health and wellness booth. And something that overall struck me for the assessments there, we did interviews about people's social and emotional health and wellness, was that, oh, sorry, that was an echo. People would list their physical health as being perhaps poor or even worse, but then oftentimes they would list their social and their mental wellness as being above okay, as being good or better. And I think that as a younger person coming in, I made a lot of assumptions that people with these many diagnoses and these many physical health problems would be depressed and would be, just like not enjoying life. But these people had a lot of, even with their limitations, had so much love for life. They had good support. They had things that were really actually boosting their mental health during the pandemic. So that was just something that I really noticed.
I think for me personally, for the sake of time, I'll just jump in there. There was one gentleman, the first wellness fair, sorry, I tried to find the quietest room possible and it's not. He came to the oral health tent and had maybe 3 stubs of teeth left in his mouth. But the fact that he actually had a person to talk to who was considered a professional, who was approachable and not in a uniform, and was out at this wellness fair instead of having to make an appointment with a person, that he could just show up and express his concerns about his oral health, ask for help, get references to resources, and then also feel heard and witnessed in that whole very approachable setting of the wellness fair. I thought was just a great example of how these fairs can reach out to the community in an approachable way and in an effective way that makes a great impact.
Yeah, terrific. Sorry, I had technical problems and had to come back in. So unfortunately, we're right at that point of having to switch, I think, to our next poster, but that is also about Westbrook, and we'll have more time to talk about it after that's done.
Thank you so much. It's excellent.
On this series would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so, and then we'll start your video.
Mariana, Gunner, yeah, there you go, Miguel.
Yes, hey there. Hey everyone, my name is Miguel. I'm a first year physical therapy student, and we also have Gunner on here as well.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Gunner, first year PT student. Excited for this to get going.
Hi, my name is Mariana, and I'm an occupational therapy student who worked alongside Gunner, a DPT student, Miguel, another DPT student, and we worked within the Westbrook Housing Authority and got the opportunity to perform a series of health and wellness seminars for the residents. Within each seminar, we presented on a specific theme and came with raffle prizes that were associated with that theme. For example, during the mindfulness seminar, we gave away oil diffusers and stress balls to complement the theme of mindfulness and reducing stress. The CECE mini grant that was graciously awarded to our team has allowed us to incorporate prizes like these during every seminar, resulting in satisfied residents evidenced by the positive survey outcomes presented in the poster. As students, we learned how to communicate and empathize and welcome the older adult population through informative presentations, activities, and conversations. This allowed the physical therapy and occupational therapy students the chance to collaborate with one another for events to deliver professional and appropriate information. Given our background and unique knowledge we have learned so far in our program, we each brought unique ideas and perspectives and knowledge into the sessions. One of the biggest takeaways after giving the presentations was the impact that we made for those in attendance at the Westbrook Housing Authority. Despite the small turnouts, we were able to connect with the residents in a more personable way. We would like to thank Dr. Elizabeth Sire, Professor Elise Austinson, Reggie Robinette, Tom Muser, Professor Elizabeth Cramsey, Michelle Coe, Chris Hall for the endless amount of support and knowledge and guidance through this whole process.
Terrific. Thank you all. So, and the fact that you may have only reached a small number of people in these doesn't negate the power and meaning of this work, because you're helping us build this collaboration with Westbrook Housing. And I think I'll give the same question to all of you about this experience, those of you who ran it, Gunner, Miguel. Did you have a personal connection or experience with one of the residents that really touched you as part of this?
I'm trying to think here. I don't remember having a specific conversation with a specific resident, but I do remember one of our meetings was it was very intimate. It was only about 7 or 8 residents, and we did get to talk about a lot of situations or a lot of topics that normally wouldn't be brought up. And we were talking a little bit about family and how to cope through the season, through the spring season. And I thought that time was really intimate in terms of just hearing what they had to say and some of their coping strategies. I think that was the biggest standout for me this semester.
Thank you. How about
I got to observe one session and I was so impressed with how the students facilitated the group, how lively the group discussion was, how much everybody enjoyed being together.
Right. It was great.
How about for you, Miguel? Did you have any I'm sorry, Gunner.
Yeah, so I've done a couple of events at Westbrook Housing, and every time I went, I'd see some familiar faces, which was really nice. I got to build some connections with them. The presentation we did, there's maybe like 4 or 5 people there, so we had some time after, and we got to talk to some of the people there, and just face-to-face conversation was really nice with them. Got to see some of like their beliefs. I think the one we did was like on like goal setting and how that can kind of be tough for people that age. It gave me like a better perspective on just like dealing with that kind of population of people. So that was really nice.
From others in this room, questions or comments? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for the presentation. So this question is coming because I just came from 2 presentations that were focused more on telehealth. So I know this was in person, and our ability to do that in part is because of the proximity of the campus to this facility. And I'm just kind of curious, your thoughts on, could this have worked in a telehealth modality? Or the other question I had is continuing to maintain connectivity in between the in-person visits to the campus. And any thoughts about either of those from your respective disciplines?
Well, Mike, I think that's a great point to bring up because, as we know, telehealth is well needed in Maine, and the majority of Maine patients and clients are going to be geriatric or elderly. So it seems like an ideal setting. However, I would say that part of the most joyous part of the experience was actually the in-person contact. And it really was where the rubber met the road, where I said, oh, this is why I'm in this health program. Otherwise, if I was on another tele meeting, I probably would be way less enthusiastic about the project itself. And I think it also wouldn't meet the needs of the residents necessarily because they are elderly. They're living, for the most part, singly in individual apartments. And community settings are really what keeps their mental and emotional health in the higher range. But then also that interprofessional collaboration in person where these, water cooler conversations take place, that's invaluable. And in the Zoom format, as we know, it's only one person can speak at a time and there's no mingling per se. So I agree, maybe what you brought up is using it perhaps as like a way of maintaining a maintenance visit with someone, sure. But I think the heart and soul, and Tom did a great job of kind of garnering like lots of excitement and involvement around it because it was in person and it was in, a community setting. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks. That was a great response.
Anybody else have a comment on that question?
I have a comment on that. I was working with you, Tom, with the nutrition project we were doing at Westbrook. And yeah, I don't think that if we had to do anything with these residents on telehealth, I think it would have been a real struggle for all of us because just when we were doing all the pre-stuff and we had it on an iPad, it was really hard to navigate that technology with the residents at Westbrook Housing. So it's wonderful that we were able to do all these different things with them in person. I don't think personally it would have worked on telehealth.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I mean, I think this integration of in-person with digital contact and support is important. And I think it is the wave of the future for us. But how we do it and when, I think, still is an open question. And we've learned in some of these, and thanks, Amanda, for that comment, because in that project, we learned that the tech support needs of
of this population were very significant. And if we didn't plan ahead well enough for those, we were in trouble. So I think we're coming up on, I think, another time switch. Is that true, Elise, or do we have another 10 minutes to talk about this?
So you do have another 10 minutes to talk about it. I'm going to share my screen just real fast for the next minute in case anybody comes into our track and they're unsure of what we're going to be talking about. So go ahead and take like a 1-minute break, or maybe think of some more questions. I think a few people had asked in the chat, and be prepared to come back and answer them in about 1 minute.
So while we're in this pause period, I'll just maybe speak just briefly to sort of my vision for the fall semester at Westbrook. And this has really been an evolution in this partnership, such that last fall, we came off this really amazing in-person wellness fair that Hannah spoke about in the first presentation on Westbrook. And we began to implement programming. So we implemented dental hygiene services, and that's been a slam dunk. And it's been really interesting as the word has gotten out further. We're getting, just in the last couple of weeks, we've gotten flooded with calls of people, and we're now scheduling into the fall for oral health care at Westbrook. So really exciting. Oral health is an anchor service that provides an opportunity for us then to link residents with other services. So an example of a linkage is a course that Marissa Lyon is teaching this term. Some of you may have been over to do balance and fall risk assessment with residents. Many of the people that were assessing for balance and falls came to us through the oral health. And similarly with social work, we've had these kind of interconnections. My vision for this coming academic year is to shift away from ad hoc service learning programming. Not that we're going to stop that, but more to integrate the Westbrook resource and our really growing level of trust with residents to specific courses where we build into a course in PT or OT or social work or whatever the discipline, a specific assignment and project that benefits both the learning objectives of the course as well as the residents. I recently sent an email to all faculty in Westbrook College inviting them to build Westbrook into their fall syllabi, something I didn't do last year because I really had no clue how successful this partnership would be. I have 10 faculty who have reached out to me wanting to build Westbrook into their formal fall syllabi, which to me is a tremendous win. So for others who've engaged in this type of service learning experience, I'm wondering if there are other kind of life or professional lessons from this that you're going to take with you. Anybody have anything you want to add or share about that? Something you're going to take with you. Courtney, were you going to share?
Sure. So I'm Courtney. I'm from physical therapy and I'm a first year. And this fall, we learned a little bit about motivational interviewing and kind of how to talk to an older person that you might not have had experience with. So we got the amazing opportunity to work in small groups and do some just general interviewing with some of the Westbrook housing patients. And it was just an amazing opportunity. We got to learn so much about them, so much into their lives that maybe you wouldn't ask on your day-to-day visits of what do you imagine a good day, or how do you imagine, your death, even like kind of talk about hard concepts like that. So that was really nice to kind of step aside from, okay, does your back hurt? Where does it hurt? How much is your pain kind of deal? And kind of bringing those questions and figuring out more of like the actual person as a whole into your patient visits. So that's one takeaway I took.
Yeah, thank you. I think we all within our disciplines will tend to focus on what our checklist for a session or evaluation includes. And it's hard to spend the time sometimes to get to know people in a more deep or personal way. And yet I think from what Courtney just shared, there's great richness and opportunity in doing that for the care encounter as a whole. Hannah, were you going to share something? I saw you nodding, but I don't want to call on you if you're not going to share.
I can share. I totally agree. Like building that connection with residents or future patients is just really important. And so during one of the mini wellness fairs during the winter, I had a resident that I was chatting with, and she talked about how her mother had recently died, and that she was going through a hard time, and that she just really appreciated that this was something that could get her out of her apartment and to take her mind off of things. And she just really enjoyed too, just talking with me and having someone there to support her. So just providing opportunities like that and not underestimating the power of a connection and just asking people how they're doing, it really goes a long way.
Thank you.
Tom,
So-
there was, oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there was recently the pharmacy department held an interprofessional conference. And one of the things that they had brought up as a need for more exercise with is communication. And I feel like the Westbrook Housing Project or the collaboration that we have with them gives us a forum in which to actually practice what, as a Carolyn, I think it were said earlier, you know, that she got to practice motivational interviewing, like that's a communication technique, or even getting to communicate with an aging population, which we will need a lot of practice with once we get out into the main healthcare arena, because this WHA represents so much of what the Maine population is. It's a great sampling of who we'll be dealing with in Maine. And so getting to know that population in an intimate way ahead of time really will help us to target their needs once we get into the professional arena and know how to approach them and communicate with them in a therapeutic way. So it's just a great training wheels.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Maura. I'm thinking of an instant we had this semester where we had a panel come in and speak with one of the PT classes. Now, this was a panel of our legacy scholars talking about their experiences with one aspect of aging. But I could see a panel with residents from Westbrook coming in and speaking with a class about their experiences in healthcare encounters. And you start talking to older adults and you'll quickly find examples where people feel like they've been discounted, not listened to, talked down to, or the classic yelled at. You know, people raising their voice because, well, you're old, therefore you can't hear. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And if anyone listening is teaching such a class or involved in one, I'd love to arrange such a panel. Any other comments before we finish this up? Any of you who've been at Westbrook, if you had all the money in the world, is there like a project you think, oh, I'd love to do there if I had the money and the support to do it?
I just thought it's so fabulous that we are connecting college students with people at Westbrook Housing, but what about connecting younger children too? Are there any efforts in that direction? Because we know how rich those kind of intergenerational connections can be, just a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah. I have not to date, but I'm familiar with a place out in Cleveland, a long-term care facility that is co-located with a daycare center, where the older adults interact with the children, and how enriching that is. And yeah, that would be really, really interesting to try to do something like that with the Westbrook population. You know, something else that I noticed with the Westbrook residents that I don't notice with our legacy scholars is kind of a Maslow's hierarchy of needs thing. Our legacy scholars are often more educated, retired professionals who I find have a lot more time for enrichment activity. Legacies, our folks at Westbrook, a lot of them are dealing with really basic needs. But one of those basic needs is a need for socialization and mattering, or personal meaning, that you matter to others. And I think that's something where a young child interaction with a resident could be really cool. So I just saw the little flash up there. So Lisa, I guess we're going to be moving ahead to our next event.
Yes, I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll begin our next presentation at 12:51. So everybody has like a minute to move around if there's any last minute switches you have to make. All right, so our final presentation of the day is improving pharmacy education and patient-centered care through virtual reality. And is Kristen here? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten Sullivan. I'm a P2 student, so I'm in my second year of pharmacy at the UNE School of Pharmacy. I got to work with Dr. Nichols and a lot more of the pharmacy staff, as well as Brian Piper on this research project. I'm super excited to talk about it today. Let's do this.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten Sullivan, and I'm a second year pharmacy student currently working alongside Dr. Nichols in her research. I quickly want to acknowledge and thank the other faculty and mentors that have helped us in our research. Dr. McCall from UNE School of Pharmacy, Brian Piper from Geisinger School of Medicine, and Susan Woods from Generated Health. And to Dr. Nichols from the School of Pharmacy for this opportunity. Empathy is the ability to understand one another's feelings. It is an extremely important skill to have within any health field, but it isn't something that is easily taught. In order for someone to fully understand a patient's emotions, they must truly recognize the patient's disease as well as their perspective. In this study, we aim to explore the impacts that immersive virtual reality, or VR, experiences have on student pharmacists' knowledge, attitudes, and anticipated behaviors, specifically in regards to Alzheimer's disease. Participants completed one or more of the 3 simulated VR modules offered by Embodied Labs, called the Beatrice Lab. This program allowed for students to experience Alzheimer's disease through first-person perspective, as it involved realistic visual and auditory disturbances, language comprehension struggle, and symptoms of aphasia. After completing modules, students then completed several short essay prompts, assessing their self-perceived empathy and anticipated changes to patient-centered care as a result of the activity. These responses were split into meaning units, as seen on the right. For example, one student wrote, "Seeing this experience will definitely help me as a future pharmacist to make sure that I am expressing empathy in patients that have difficulty understanding what may be going on with them." We then condensed these units into codes, allowing us to recognize overarching themes. For example, we coded the ideas communication and isolation, feeling like a burden, scared and helpless, confused, altered perception, together and created the theme of understanding the dementia experience. Using VR to supplement didactic pharmacy education is a useful tool, as data reflected that after completing this experience, students reported an increased understanding of dementia, recognition of the importance of empathetic and patient and family-centered care, as well as the ability to identify anticipated changes in future practice, such as approaching calmly and slowly and building trust and rapport. Thank you for listening and for this opportunity.
Okay, so any of those on this poster wish to share anything more with the group?
I would just say hi. This is Stephanie Nichols. I'm sorry I'm off camera and you might hear in my voice. I've got home really late last night, 4 a.m. from a delayed and diverted flight, but enough about that. I'm just really proud of Kirsten and all the work you've done. I know that we presented some of our work as well in a national conference presentation just this past weekend. You weren't able to join, but yeah, so I'm just really proud of you and I'm excited to hear the discussion here. I have nothing to add about the research itself.
What does virtual reality offer that maybe watching a video on a flat screen doesn't? I mean, what is the value added of virtual reality?
I think that's a great question. I guess the biggest thing for virtual reality, as well as the program that we used for it, is the fact that even before the module begins, when you put on the headset and hold the controllers, like everywhere you look around you is the module. You see what's projecting. And you also have the option to like use your hands through the controllers as well. So even before the module begins, you're able to look at the brain and the different parts of the brain that Alzheimer's affects. Another thing is the biggest takeaway from this project that I believe and what virtuality I think helps is the fact that empathy is so hard to teach. There was, back when I was an undergraduate, this is, I guess, a story, but a few years ago when I was in undergraduate program, my dean, the dean of pharmacy school, who I see was able to join, Dean McCarthy. He came and visited our class, and he was telling us that when you work in the pharmacy, at the end of the day, anyone that comes into the pharmacy is there because they have a health issue. So they're not always in the best mood, and that might come off at you. But I think with virtual reality is that it teaches you from the patient's perspective what they're going through and why they may communicate in the way that they do to you. I think by using virtual reality as a way to supplement education, greatly influences the way that we see patients and how we understand empathy. And that was also shown in our research.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
This is kind of a follow-up question. Can anyone who is on the project share, one thing that's very tangible that you would, empathy is hard to measure, but you kind of know it when you see it. So I'm curious, one take home you say, and it may be a small thing, but this is something through this experience. I know if I encountered this, I'd behave differently. And this is like, what would that be?
I hope I understand the question correctly, but I think for me, when me and Dr. Nichols were going through the different responses students had towards it, a lot of them, and we included one on the poster. I hope you guys could see the poster because I know it's a little blurry. A lot of students were able to make their own metaphors and analogy of Alzheimer's disease to something else. Like the one that we included was the feeling of like untangling a necklace and how that feels, or feeling isolated and lonely, or the struggles of when you are the patient will try to communicate and they aren't able to efficiently. What they're thinking, they're not able to verbalize. And so I hope that answered it and that I interpreted it correctly, but I think that was a big identifier of the empathy.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the group? I know I had a chance to try out one of this. I don't think it was this scenario. I tried out one of the other ones from Embodied Labs, and the idea of taking the visual perspective of another person in this is so, for me, was so different than just watching a static video on a screen. That modality for me personalized the interaction in a way I don't think I could have experienced any other.
I'm so glad you brought that up because another thing that students consistently brought up when reflecting was the idea that at the end of the day, they could take off the headset and go on with their days, whereas patients that do suffer from different diseases such as Alzheimer's, which was what we studied, can't do that. And so I think that's an excellent reference to that.
What was your personal experience, Kirsten, with experiencing Alzheimer's?
So it was actually very interesting. This experiment was done on third-year students, and I'm only in my second year. So I haven't had any experience through the classroom with mental health or any other disorders. So this was really like my first time experiencing any sort of mental disorder. And so I think it was really eye-opening seeing, like, when you read textbook definitions, it'll say trouble communicating. But I don't think you really understand what that means until you do take on the perspective. Like in the module, there's this one part where the patient believes that like something harmful is knocking on the door, whereas that can't be the case, but that's your only perspective. So I think it was really interesting to see how patients live compared to the textbook definition of it.
So it looks like we're just at the end of our time. I want to thank all of our poster presenters for sharing their amazing work. And as Bob is indicating, I think a round of applause is more than appropriate. The opportunity to share in this way, the Zoom platform is less personal, but I'll tell you, we just heard a ton of information that would be hard to get any other way. So kudos to the organizers. And I believe this is where we say goodbye. So Elise, you correct me if I'm wrong as the room moderator. We don't go back to the main room, do we?
Nope, this is the end of the poster presentation. If you haven't done so already, please fill out the attendance form. I just dropped the link in the chat. And yeah, thank you all so much for attending and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Be well, everyone. Take care.